All right, Trump will not be buying Gaza. He says we're just going to be taking it. Um, let's actually watch this. Him saying we're just going to take. Today, Trump. What happened was he was meeting with the King of Jordan, King Abdullah of Jordan, came to Washington, the second foreign dignitary to show up. So of course he had Netanyahu last week. Was a lot of fanfare with Netanyahu. Then he goes and meets with King Abdullah of Jordan. While he's sitting there, he was asked about whether or not the United States would be paying the Palestinians for Gaza. And this is what he says.
I really think we're making some very good progress.
Mr. President, you've said before that the U.S. would buy Gaza, and today you just said we're not going to buy Gaza.
We're not going to have to buy. We're going to have Gaza. We don't have to buy. There's nothing to buy. We will have Gaza.
What does that mean?
No reason to buy. There is nothing to buy. It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it. We're going to hold it. We're going to cherish it. We're going to get it going eventually, where a lot of jobs are going to be created for the people in the Middle East. It's going to be for the people in the Middle East, but I think it could be a diamond. It could be an absolute tremendous asset for the Middle East, and you're going to have peace. It's going to bring peace in the Middle East. Gaza.
So there he is saying, we're not going to buy it. We're just going to take it. Unbelievable for him to be saying that we're just going to take it. There's nothing to buy, he says, because there's rubble. Could you imagine making that argument? Once again, I mean, the people that are for this, just answer the question. Do you think the people whose homes burnt down in Pacific Palisades, their house is rubble, it is nothing, the whole neighborhood is gone? Do you think that is just okay if the government, if the state of California came in and just said, all right, then we're just going to take the land now. There's nothing to buy here. The land is what's valuable. Are you kidding me? I mean, maybe a lot of people in this country don't understand real estate or something. I mean, I just don't know how people are buying this and thinking it's a good idea. The only people that I can see that are thinking this is a good idea, they know for a fact that the land their house is sitting on is where their value is in their property. It's on the land. Usually, I mean, maybe there's parts of this country where the land doesn't really matter, but in the state of California and a lot of other places, it's where the house is placed that decides whether or not the house is valuable. It's not the building itself, it's the damn land. And that land in Gaza is beachfront property. It is worth a lot. It also has a natural gas field on it. So you've got valuable land. And Trump is just saying, he's just like acting like a swindler, saying, oh, it's not worth anything. I mean, the place is destroyed. Well, the land is still there. And try saying that to the Palisades, the people, the Palestinians, I call them, the Palisadians here in California. Try telling them, well, your house burned down, so now your land is not worth anything, when they're sitting on multi-mega million-dollar piece of land. And tell them, we're just going to take it. We're just going to take it. No big deal. People are really fed up about this. I don't think most people are really thrilled with this idea that Trump would be taking a chunk of the Middle East, rebuilding it into the Riviera while neglecting Americans. People are just not for this. Sean Strickland, he had a tweet go viral, and he says, man, if Trump keeps this BS up, I'm about to start waving a Palestinian flag. American cities are shitholes, and you want to go spend billions on this dumpster fire. Did we make a mistake? This ain't America first, is what Sean, he's an MMA fighter, is what he wrote. And that has been getting 137,000 likes. I mean, people are not really interested in rebuilding a place in the Middle East. Certainly not one that is just going to lead to more disaster. Do you think that all of the Arab, we've seen the protests with the Arabs in the streets, or even just the Turks in the streets up in Turkey. Do you think that all of those citizens are just going to let it go when the land has been cleared of the Palestinians, of the Arab people in the West Bank and in Gaza? You don't think they're going to rise up and wreak havoc to their governments, to their countries, potentially try to overthrow their leaders who they think are traitors and backstabbers? Do you think that would just lead to more peace in the Middle East? You think that clearing the land of these Palestinians and then taking those refugees, millions of refugees, and sticking them in other countries? I mean, you see how Americans are riled up over the people we have here we're trying to deport out. Now, imagine if Trump turned around and said, well, actually, what you need to do is we're going to take 2 million of those refugees into our country. That would cause so much political unrest. that would be the end of Jordan as a country. If Jordan went along with this, this would be the end of Egypt. Those leaders would be toppled. They would be assassinated. Their countries would go into disarray. And the leaders they install will be absolutely 1000% anti-America. This isn't going to go over smoothly. So to think that this is going to lead to peace in the Middle East, when in reality, it's going to lead to a ton of unrest. That is exactly what this would. That is exactly what this will amount to. So he says that while he's sitting next to the king of Jordan. He says, "Yeah, well, there's nothing to buy. We're not going to. We'll just have Gaza. It's ours. We're going to take it and we're going to hold it and we're going to cherish it." So you're saying that it's worthless, but we're going to cherish it and hold it. Why would we want something so worthless? Well, because it's not worthless, and you know that. So Jordan's King Abdullah did, so how is he going to respond to this, right? He's sitting with Trump. He's here in Washington, D.C. He's a guest of Trump. How is he responding to it? He says, well, we're apparently going to talk about this. Apparently the Arab nations have gotten together and they have their own plan that they're going to propose. And maybe this is Trump's ploy. I mean, maybe this is a negotiation tactic with these Arab countries, is he's like, you guys better come up with a solution. Otherwise, I'm just taking the damn place. And I mean, that's not a bad negotiation tactic if that's what this is. If that's what this is, fair enough. If he's just trying to finally push them to do something and do something now, fine. But if he's actually trying to pressure them, if that something is take all the people, clear the land because we want to take it, that would be obviously highly problematic, not just for Americans, but also for Middle Easterners. They don't want Americans over there or America to own their land. So this is what King Jordan has to say to Trump during today's meeting.
Mr. President, many people in the region, especially Jordan, are worried about the annexation of the West Bank. Will you give His Majesty the King guarantee that you won't allow Israel to annex the West Bank? And how are you going to
I think that's going to work out very well. That's not really what we're talking about today. I think that's something that's going to work out automatically, and it's in good shape. And we discuss it, other people have discussed it with us and with me. That's going to work out. West Bank is going to work out very well.
Mr. President, why should the king take in the Palestinian people? He's made clear he doesn't want to.
Well, I don't know, but he may have just something to say, because we discussed just briefly. I think maybe you want to say it now, or?
Well, Mr. President, I think we have to keep in mind that there is a plan from Egypt and the Arab countries. We're being invited by Mohammed bin Salman to discussions in Riyadh. I think the point is how do we make this work in a way that is good for everybody? Right. And obviously, we have to look at the best interests of the United States, of the people in the region, especially to my people of Jordan. And we're going to have some interesting discussions today. I think one of the things that we can do right away is take 2,000 children that are either cancer children or in a very ill state to Jordan as quickly as possible, and then wait for, I think, the Egyptians to present their plan on how we can work with the president to work on the Gaza challenges.
So
I want to tell you, excuse me, wait, just please. I didn't know that, what you just said, 2,000 children with cancer or other problems, and that's really a beautiful gesture. That's really good, and we appreciate it. And we'll be working on the rest with Egypt. I think you're going to see some great progress. I think with Jordan, you're going to see some great progress. 3 of us, and we'll have some others helping, and we're going to have some others at a very high level helping, and the whole thing will come. It's not a complex thing to do. And with the United States being in control of that piece of land, a fairly large piece of land, you're going to have stability in the Middle East for the first time. And the Palestinians, or the people that live now in Gaza, will be living beautifully in another location. They're going to be living safely. They're not going to be killed, murdered, and having to leave every 10 years, because I've been watching this for so many years. It's nothing but trouble. Everyone's being killed. They're being robbed. It's like living in hell. And they're going to end up having a great home, great families that don't have to get mugged and killed and beaten up and harassed by Hamas and everybody else. And I know we'll be able to work something. And what you just said about the 2,000 is fantastic. It's so beautiful. It's music to my ears. But we're going to be able to work something, and I know we'll be able to work something also with I believe, not 100%, but 99%. We're going to work out something with Egypt.
Mr. President,
during your election campaign,
Mr. President, how is the U.S. going to own Gaza? Your White House has made clear taxpayer dollars won't be used for this. So
No,
what
we
money are you
won't
going to use
no,
to
no.
buy
We'll-
Gaza?
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it, and we're going to run it very properly, and eventually we'll have economic development at a very large scale, maybe the largest scale on that site, and we'll have lots of good things built there, including hotels and office buildings and housing and other things. And we'll make that site into what it should be. And the people from Gaza who wouldn't be able to be there for years, because you're talking about just to get it and prepare it and to take care of all of the problems that currently it has, as you know, tunnels, and people are in those tunnels. And you have some good people and some bad people, and you may have hostages right now. You know, you have the hostages possibly there. They don't know where they are. And, you know, I have a Saturday deadline, and I don't think they're going to make the deadline personally. I think they want to play tough guy, but we'll see how tough they are. But it's going to be a wonderful thing. It's going to be wonderful for the Middle East. I think it'll turn the Middle East. I think you're going to have peace in the Middle East. You're going to eventually have peace in the Middle East.
Couldn't this deadline risk undermining the talks that you're having with the king today, and risk the kind of wider peace that you're trying
No,
to?
because we're not talking about a big situation. We're talking about something that can go very quickly. We're talking about, it's going to go quickly. It's not going to take a long time, okay? That's
Mr.
not going to take
President,
a long time.
when
You know bullies? You know what a bully is, right? You know the bully, I've always, and I found it throughout my life, a bully is the weakest person. And they're bullies. Hamas is bullies. The weakest people are bullies. You know that, right? All right, go ahead.
Mr. President, you were saying that Palestinians will live somewhere else safe. Where exactly do you want them to live?
Well, it's not where I want them to live. It's going to be where we ultimately choose as a group. And I believe we'll have a parcel of land in Jordan. I believe we'll have a parcel of land in Egypt. We may have someplace else, but I think when we finish our talks, we'll have a place where they're going to live very happily and very safely. And, you know, don't forget, they only want to be on the Gaza Strip because they don't know anything else. They never had an alternative. And they don't want to be on the Gaza Strip, but they have no choice. They have to be. And they're being killed there at levels that nobody's ever seen. No place in the world is as dangerous as the Gaza Strip. They don't want to be there. They have no alternative. When they have an alternative, not one person will want to stay where they are. Nobody wants to stay there. They're living in hell. It's a death trap.
Mr. President, how do you know that the Palestinians don't want to leave their land? Some people say this is ethnic cleansing. You won't be able to force them to leave their land. They stay
We're moving
there.
them to a beautiful location where they have new homes, where they can live safely, where they'll have
But they want to
doctors
leave,
and
sir.
medical and all of those things. And I think it's going to be great. Yeah, any questions?
Oh, okay. First of all, Trump admits this project would take years and years, 20 years even. Trump is only president for 4 years. So what is the next president going to take this project on? How are you going to build homes fast enough for the Palestinians right now someplace else? So let's just say they would go along with this. Let's just say that this whole battle between the Palestinians and the Israelis is not about land, which it is. It's about land, and it's about the Israelis trying to take the Palestinians' land. So let's just say, though, for a second, it's not. And it's just that, you know, the Palestinians will be fine living anywhere else. They don't care about their land. They don't care about it. They'll just, wherever you want to send them, they'll go live, which is just batshit crazy. But let's just say that's what they're going to do. How are you going to build homes for them fast enough wherever you claim you're going to be building them? How are you going to build homes for 2 million people someplace else? And how long is that going to take? And again, is someone else going to take that project? Are they going to undercut the pricing? Are the homes going to go from, you know, being the plan was a beautiful home, but here you end up with this kind of rubbly cardboard crap? I mean, how is this all going to work out? Then he says things like the bully is the weakest. The bully has been Israel. So Israel's the weakest. And we know they're the weakest because they have to buy us off. They have to buy off our entire government in order to ensure that they're protected and that they're allowed to do whatever it is that they want to do. So when he blames on Hamas and says that they're the bully, They're not the bully. The bully has always been Israel. And he sort of admits that. One thing that I'm frustrated with is why none of the reporters ask, or why they don't point out. You're saying that Gaza is a hellhole, that it's terrible, that they're living it, they're being murdered, they're being killed, they're being massacred. You admit all of this. It's not like a natural disaster or spikes are just popping up out of the ground, killing these people, that this is just uninhabitable land and the land is hostile and the land is causing the deaths of all these people. What's happening is the Israelis are causing the death of all these people. So why not point out the fact that their neighbor is a mass murderer? They're living next to a serial killer, and the serial killer is not being stopped. And not only are you not stopping them, but now you're aiding and abetting them. They're saying, oh, well, you're just trying to clear all these people off the land, so we'll just clear them off the land for you, and then that way you can stop killing them. So on one hand, maybe Trump is coming from a place of, look, these people are just being killed, and the Israelis aren't going to stop, and it's unrealistic. I mean, he might be coming from a place of realism, and I could kind of understand this because I mean, look, the Israelis, yeah, I mean, I guess they're going to win. They're always going to win. They're proud of that. They do win, and they take more land every single time. So maybe somebody just finally has to come to terms with that and say, look, they're always going to win, and they're going to kill these people every single time without even remorse. And the only thing we can do is just understand that and move the people, because Israel will not stop. They are a mass murderer and no one's stopping them. Part of me thinks that, maybe that is where Trump's coming from. But then I remember, but America funds Israel. And if it weren't for the funding we give them, they wouldn't be able to do this at all. So just cut off the funding. I mean, if you want to save the lives, cut off the funding and tell them you guys have to share. We have to go back to the 1967 borders, and you can't keep this crap up. But nobody does that. But then again, maybe the Israelis have come to Trump and said, yeah, because we've also bought off a lot of other governments. So if you're not going to help us out, we've got the Chinese, we've got the Russians for sure. I mean, most of Israel, or a third of Israel, the people are Russian. Russian is I believe the third most spoken language. I think English, a lot of them speak English, but a lot of them speak Russian. They're Russian native speakers. And so maybe they're threatening and saying, it's either you or Russia. Which one do you want us to give all of our tech to and our innovation? Who do you want to, Mossad? You want Mossad on your side or Mossad on Russia's side? My guess is they've leveraged these types of things, and the U.S. has just decided it's better to keep your enemies close and to be friends with them. And Israel is 100% our enemy. They blackmail us. They buy off our politicians. They do not have our best interest in mind. They are the enemy of the United States, but we have to pretend like we're friends because they're psychotic and they're coming after us otherwise. And they're going to sick Mossad on us if we don't play nice, and they're going to go and be friends with Russia, and it's going to be really awful. And so keep your enemies close. That's all you can really do, and grin and smile about it. Tom Cotton, now people are really into this. Trump says, this is what's so stupid about all of this. Trump says, we're going to take Gaza. We're going to take the land. It's going to be ours. Suddenly, all of these typically American first MAGA people are suddenly all about this new multi-mega billion-dollar, trillion-dollar project of taking on this land somewhere in the Middle East that no one's ever going to go visit. And Tom Cotton now is justifying this. He tweets out the idea that Gaza, and this is a sentiment a lot of people are saying, like, look, they've lost the war. The land is ours. That's the way it works. There's consequences to losing a war. If you start a war and you lose, this is what happens to you. And this is kind of what Tom Cotton and many others are claiming. He says the idea that Gaza must retain its sovereignty after invading another country and committing the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust is ahistorical nonsense. An excellent read from the Free Beacon. And he cites this Free Beacon article titled "The Historical Case for Trump's Riviera." And in this article, let me just read a little bit about from this. Historical precedent suggests that Hamas invasion of southern Israel that day and the punishment by the Israeli Defense Forces have severe implications for whether the Gazans still have the right to decide their own destiny and who governs them. For again and again in the past, peoples who unleash unprovoked aggressive wars against their neighbors and are then defeated, as the Gazans have been on any conceivable metric, lose either their government or their sovereignty or both. It would be strange were Hamas somehow to buck this historical trend. So then it goes and lists the various wars where the losers, what happened to the losers when they lost. And he starts off and he cites the Boer War, which was 1899 to 1902. And this happened in South Africa. And it was the two Boer republics invaded British territories in South Africa. And they were annexed by the British after losing the war, losing both their sovereignty and their government. So the Boer people were the Dutch that were colonial settlers down in South Africa, and then there was the British. So it was these two colonial groups going at it with one another. The British ended up winning, and the Boers lost their territory and they lost their government. But nobody kicked the Boers out. I mean, a lot of them left on their own, but a lot of them didn't, and they stuck around. And no one ethnically cleansed these Dutch settlers from the British land. They just had to live under British rule, and they understood that. But it was still colonial rule, so it's kind of a weird one to use. Goes on and cites Sudetenland, which is the Sudeten Germans led by Konrad Heinlein, aligned with Hitler to facilitate Nazi invasion of Czechoslovakia. After Germany's defeat, over 3 million Germans were expelled from their ancestral lands, which were repopulated with ethnic Czechs. So Czechoslovakia at the time, the Czech Republic today, had a bunch of ethnic Germans living in Czechoslovakia. And when the Germans lost the war, Czechoslovakia expelled 3 million of those Germans from the land. I wouldn't call it their necessarily ancestral homes. These were ethnic Germans who were living, many of them for generation after generation after generation, but they were living in Czechoslovakia. And they were ultimately expelled. That expulsion, by the way, is not one that the history looks upon and says, yeah, that's the way it works when you lose a war. That expulsion is looked at as a black stain in history. The Czechs have apologized for that. There's been talks of reparations to those families. This is considered a war crime. We do not ethnically cleanse people from the lands, especially these people, the Germans. Yes, Germany lost the war, but a lot of these people had nothing to do with that. Maybe they supported Germany, maybe they supported Hitler, but they were still just innocent civilians that had a certain political perspective. And instead, the Czech says, well, we're expelling you from the land. But they weren't expelling ethnic Czechs from Czechoslovakia. The real parallel would be if the Germans won the war, took Czechoslovakia, and kicked the Czech people off the land. That would be something more comparable. Goes and cites Vichy France, saying the Vichy government collaborated with Nazi Germany, leading to its delegitimization and replacement by the Free French after D-Day. Yeah, okay, so they got a new government, but did we kick the French out of France? Did we kick the Japanese out of Japan? Did we kick the Italians out of Italy? Did we say to Japan, pack up your shit and go, we're taking over, we're gonna take the islands? Look, Asia's a big place. You could go live anywhere else on this big continent amongst other Asian people, so go, because this island now is for white people. Like, we're coming in and this is ours now. We're taking it. Sorry, losers, you lost a war, get out of here. Do you think that the Japanese would have surrendered after the nuclear bombs that we dropped on them if the narrative of the win was, now that we've won, we're taking your land and you all have to leave? Or do you think the Japanese would have continued to fight? Because I think they would have continued to fight. Their surrender had nothing to do with they suddenly were going to lose their land. Japan did not lose Japan. Germany did not lose Germany. The Italians didn't lose Italy. North Korea, he cites North Korea, says after its invasion of South Korea, North Korea suffered massive casualties, lost territory in the armistice, and became a pariah state. Korea is for Koreans. They all still live. Some of them live under North Korean rule. Some of them live under South Korean rule. They're all still Koreans, and no Koreans got kicked out of Korea. Falklands War. Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, but was defeated by Britain. The Argentine military junta was overthrown afterward. Okay. Again, these are the people. We don't have examples, very many examples of ethnically cleansing land from the people there. And when they have been ethnically cleansed, we call it a genocide or ethnic cleansing. It's considered a war crime. It's not something to look back at and say, see, others did it, so it's fine. Actually, we say that's wrong. And we say that about the Jews that were ethnically cleansed out of German land, German Jews, people that were born and raised German. They just happen to have a certain religion. And so because of their religion and certain beliefs within the religion of there is a biological element that religion believes that it's passed down through the mother biologically. So they then interpret, so then German, Aryan lovers, they interpret that as an ethnicity, a race of people. They want to clear them off the land. We call that wrong. We say that's wrong. That should have never happened. Nobody looks back at that and says, yeah, well, Germans for Germany. And so the Jews had just got to go. I mean, people don't, I mean, I guess maybe Kanye West, but the rest of us don't really say that, right? So these arguments that I keep hearing of, well, they've lost a war and so that there's consequences to the war. I can understand the consequences to the war if it is, all right, you're going to take it over, you're going to take over the land and you're going to govern the land, but the people stay on the land. Again, like Japan and Germany and Italy. Germany is a great example. We carved it up. We said 1/3 to the Russians, or it was carved into 4, right? The Russians, the French, the Americans, and the British. And Germany lost its sovereignty, but the German people weren't ethnically cleansed from Germany. We just put them under our governments. We gave them a new government, gave them a constitution, gave them a whole different system and said, this is the consequence of the war. But even in that war, we understood that the consequences of World War I were what led to World War II rising. Yet right now with Hamas and October 7th, no one's looking back and realizing what caused October 7th. People can look back at World War II and say, what caused World War II? Let's not do that again. Let's not make that mistake and let's handle it differently this time. But no, that's not what's happening after October 7th. Instead, it's just punish, punish, punish. It's just a repeat of what happened after World War I when the goal was to punish. And that led to World War II. That led to the Holocaust. And so if Trump thinks that this is the path forward, that this is the way to go, is to essentially repeat the mistakes of World War I, thinking that that's not going to lead to an absolute anger that just reverberates across the Middle East, a betrayal amongst the people to their leadership, causing governments to topple. But then again, maybe that's what Israel wants. I mean, this is all, after all, Israel's main plan. And maybe Israel's thinking, great, if we force all these Palestinians on the Egyptians and on the Jordanians, then those governments are going to crumble. There's going to be a lot of unrest. And now the United States will have to rush in and use American troops to keep it calm, because Israel's going to say, oh no, we're threatened. Our neighbors are unstable. So you got to come in and do something about it. So the US inevitably comes in and does something about it. And guess what? Eventually Israel takes more land. They take the opportunity to take the entire Sinai Peninsula of Egypt, which they believe is theirs. They could take all of Jordan, which they believe historically is theirs, that God gave them. They would be able to take more of Lebanon as Lebanon goes crashing down, because they also are taking some Palestinians, and the people feel betrayed by the government. All of this is just like a master plan to take more land, which is why these Arab nations don't want to do it. They know that, but whether or not they'll stand up to it, or whether or not we're going to see a domino effect that is going to reverberate across the Middle East, this will not lead to a peaceful situation. I can tell you that. Secretary of State, though, Marco Rubio says there's not going to be peace in the Middle East as long as a group like Hamas physically controls territory and is the most dominant power in Gaza or anywhere in the Middle East, and then shares this graphic of Hamas is evil, pure evil. This is just so dangerous. When you're trying to negotiate a ceasefire agreement, when you're trying to negotiate with the enemy, calling them evil, calling them animals or sick, or, any of these things, and not understanding their perspective or where they're coming from, even if where they're coming from and whatever their perspective is, even if it is just categorically wrong, you still have to hear people out and not name call if you're trying to actually negotiate a deal with them. But clearly the United States is not really trying to negotiate a deal, which is why it shouldn't be a surprise at all that the ceasefire deal itself is crumbling. Hamas says that they will delay the release of more hostages, claiming Israel is violating the ceasefire. Trump gave this ultimatum saying, release the hostages by Saturday or else. Watch this.
Well, I would say this, and I'm going to let that be because that's Israel's decision. But as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off, and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, and if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2. Saturday at 12 o'clock, And after that, I would say all hell is going to break out.
What are you going to do? What do you mean all hell is going to break out? Like, what are you going to do? You're going to bomb babies? You're going to kill all the civilians? You're going to blow up more of their houses that are already blown up? Like, what else can you possibly do to these people to claim that all hell is going to break loose? Not only that, but this is not the deal. I mean, the deal is that they get to release hostages slowly. And now suddenly Trump is saying, I don't like that anymore. We want all the hostages by Saturday or else all hell's going to break loose. That's not the deal. You guys agreed to a deal and you have to stick to the deal. And then you blame Hamas and say Hamas isn't following through with the deal. And all you're really what are you going to, you're going to bomb? Do you think that Hamas is going to keep your hostages safe if you're just going to annihilate and bomb all their people? Because, what would stop them from just sticking your hostages that you're trying to get back right where the bomb is going to drop? What's to stop them from doing that, since you're threatening taking their land completely away from them? You're telling them now you're reneging on the deal and you want everybody released by Saturday, which is not part of the deal, or you're going to, why negotiate with these people? I mean, if you're Hamas, why would you negotiate with these people? Because they're not negotiating in good faith. They're still telling you they're going to take all your land. Not only that, but Netanyahu, apparently, some sources have come out saying that Netanyahu, speaking to political sources, have said over and over that there will be no talks on phase 2 of the Gaza ceasefire deal, that they're not really going through with it. They're saying that the whole point of this was to just get their hostages back, and then they're going to continue on with the war. So again, why would you, if you were Hamas, negotiate with these people? They're telling you all we want is what we want. We just want our hostages back, and then we're going to annihilate you some more. So you're just buying time for your annihilation? Netanyahu says in this video, he's speaking in Hebrew, but he does say, I have just concluded an in-depth 4-hour discussion with the political security cabinet. We all expressed outrage at the shocking situation of our 3 hostages who were released last Saturday. We all also welcomed President Trump's demand for the release of our hostages by Saturday noon. And we also all welcome the president's revolutionary vision for the future of Gaza. In light of Hamas's announcement of its decision to violate the agreement and not release our hostages, last night I ordered the IDF to amass forces inside and around the Gaza Strip. This operation is being carried out at this time. It will be completed in the very near future. The decision that I passed unanimously in the cabinet is this: if Hamas does not return our hostages by Saturday noon, the ceasefire will end and the IDF will return to intense fighting until Hamas is finally defeated. So Hamas is withholding the hostages that they're supposed to be releasing this weekend because they're saying that Israel is violating the ceasefire agreement. Well, obviously, any of us can see that. I mean, even if now Hamas is talking about they're blowing things up and they're violating the ceasefire agreement on the ground. But I mean, any of us that are just paying attention to the news and hearing Trump talk to the King of Jordan even, sounds like the ceasefire deal is being violated. Why would anybody continue to negotiate with you? The current ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Israel, which began on January 19th, is structured as a 3-step deal, 3-step framework, with each stage lasting 42 days. We are in phase 1 and we are only 23 days into the 42 days of stage 1. Here's an overview of this agreement, okay? So temporary cessation of military, this is phase 1. This is the current phase that we're in. Temporary cessation of military operations between both sides. Israel withdraws its forces from densely populated areas in Gaza, moving to the border region. Netanyahu just said, we're coming back in. We're not doing that. Release of 33 Israeli hostages by Hamas. Not all of them, 33. Prioritizing children, women, elderly, and female soldiers. Israel releases 30 to 50 Palestinian prisoners for each Israeli hostage. They increase humanitarian aid. Israel's supposed to be doing that. And displaced Palestinians are supposed to begin returning to their homes, which Israel has blocked on numerous occasions, which is why Hamas says, we're not giving you your hostages if you're going to keep blocking them from returning to their homes. And Israeli military flights over Gaza are supposed to be halted for 10 to 12 hours a day. So Hamas is claiming that Israel is violating these agreements. Israel is now saying, no, you're violating it. And by the way, now we're going to violate the entire agreement and we want all of our hostages, not just 33 in this first stage. We want all of them by Saturday or else. So what was the point of even negotiating with you people? I mean, this is, just really frustrating. I want to play this clip. This is the first part. We watched this a little bit earlier, but just pay attention to this first part one more time. Trump saying that the plan is also to take the West Bank. It doesn't stop with Gaza and Hamas. And remember, West Bank is not run by Hamas, but they're going to take it anyway.
His Majesty the King guarantee that you won't allow Israel to annex the West Bank? And how are you going to
I think that's going to work out very well. That's not really what we're talking about today. I think that's something that's going to work out automatically, and it's in good shape. And we discuss it, other people have discussed it with us and with me. That's going to work out. West Bank is going to work out very well.
Oh, West Bank's going to work out really well. So Israel's just going to take it. It's going to work out great. Israel's taking all the land. So the U.S. is going to take Gaza. Israel's going to take the West Bank. Trump is only president for 4 years. Gaza's going to take 20 to build. No one's going to want to build it. So, of course, it's just going to be gifted to the Israelis because, Mossad has got a bunch of blackmail on all these people and the politicians are all paid off. So Israel wins in the end and they get their entire country and it's all ethnically cleansed of the Palestinians. But how dare you accuse the Israelis of that? How dare you accuse them of trying to ethnically cleanse people off the land after they do it? Just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So this is why I did not vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Trump for this reason. I just thought he would be worse for the Middle East, worse for the Palestinians. And I just couldn't in good conscience put my vote to that, even though I thought he'd be great on a lot of things. And I think he is doing a great job in a lot of ways. I think he's certainly better than Biden. And, what's happening to the Palestinians isn't any worse right now under Trump than it was under Biden, for sure. So, it's kind of a wash, although Biden wasn't at least talking about ethnically cleansing them off the land and taking the land and screwing Americans over by making it Israel first rather than America first. But whatever. But nonetheless, this is just not the path forward for peace. In my opinion, this causes more unrest, more destabilization of these countries that are stable, like Jordan and Egypt right now. They will not be stable in the near future if they go along with this. They know that. They know that the United States can threaten taking away all the aid and all the help that the U.S. gives Egypt and Jordan, but that is a small price to pay when your head is literally on the potential chopping block, off with the head of King Abdullah. He knows that that's what the people are going to start chanting if he goes along with it, and that would be worse for him. So he's got to take a pick. Would he rather have American money and not have a head? Or would he rather have his head and not have the American money? I think it's a pretty clear choice for most people. Thanks for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show. If you want to watch the full show, just visit KimIversonShow.com. The show airs every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Again, it's KimIversonShow.com. See you there.